Okay, so now let's look at this example. Do people kiss the right way? So according to an article in the San Gabriel Valley Tribune, most people are kissing the right way. That is, according to a study, the majority of couples prefer to tilt their heads to the right when kissing. In the study, a researcher observed a random sample of 124 people kissing. So that's important. That's a random sample. And found that, here's your sample from your proportion, 0.669 of the couples tilted to the right. Do these data provide convincing evidence that more than 50% of kissing couples, so that's, let me go ahead and change color there just so you can see that, more than, so this is the convincing evidence, 50% of kissing couples prefer to tilt their heads to the right. So now the hypothesis is always, it's always easier to look at what you're looking for evidence for. But you're looking for evidence for HA. So I'm going to make a little note. All right. Looking for evidence for HA. All right. That's your alternate hypothesis. All right. So it's easier to write HA first. Okay. Now, it's not going to show up first. So I'm actually going to write it down here. Okay. So what is our alternate hypothesis? HA is that we think more than 50% of kissing couples prefer to the right. So that's evidence for, and I'm going to change this just a little bit. There we go. And let me just fix that. So, and I'm just trying to make this easier for you guys when you're studying this. So looking for evidence. So HA, all right, that means HA is that, and this is just a colon here. That's not an equal sign, all right? So that HA is not equal to something. I'm just writing my statement right there. And I think that P is greater than 0.50, all right? So then we do that first. So we did that first, right there, okay? Then write, let me go here, then write H naught. So H naught using an equals, all right? So you're going to use the same number that you used for HA, but now, let's go ahead and write here, H naught is P equals 0.50, all right? And where P, more than 50%, and I'm going to change this to that, P is. So that tells us what P is. So I just defined it. I was like, did I define this? So again, this is just good habit. It says be sure to define right there, okay? So let me go ahead and switch to yellow there. Be sure to define. And that's P is more than 50% of couples kissing to the right. So again, when you're doing these, it's much easier to write HA first, then you go and write H naught. Got it? So now we do have P hat, and P, which is P hat. I'm writing it out like this because it's just way easier on the computer. 0.669. All right. So let me put a little hat on that. And there's my P hat. So we have some, this is more, our sample is higher than 50%. So that is some evidence. So that's good. Okay. Then the p-value in the question is 0.0001. So what that means is because the probability is so low, we're going to change our mind. So again, let me just recap here since I have a few minutes. One time I was on this trial, Aryan brother and Aryan brother assault and kidnapping trial. And the defendant, I'm giving you a very abbreviated version. Well, the victim apparently was kidnapped. Well, he walked into a house with his girlfriend about 4 in the morning. And let's just say there was some assaulting. Then they tied him up with zip ties and duct tape, threw him into the back of a pickup. And this is here in Williamson County. I served as jury foreman on this trial. Anyway, so they threw him in the back of the pickup. And as they're slowly turning around one of these country roads, about 6 in the morning, they'd already beat him up. They had him tied up, driving him who knows where. He managed to get out of the pickup, and he went for help. And they called in SWAT, and they got his girlfriend. So there were several people involved. I was at trial for one of them. Anyways, so the defendant, the lawyer's trying to prove that he's innocent. Well, we're actually not needing evidence for the assumption. We don't need evidence for H naught. We need evidence to say guilty, because in most trials, like we said, you are looking for evidence. You assume H naught, all right? It doesn't mean you prove it. You assume it. And so they were looking for evidence that he was guilty. I had to kind of assume that he was not guilty. Now, his lawyer did show a video of him in a interrogation room, and he was like crying, I never went into that house. I never went into that house. He was all by himself. No one else could see him. And so the lawyer said, look, here's video. He's clearly innocent, right? And so was that enough to convince me that he was innocent? No. A guilty guy could be saying this. This might not be his first rodeo, right? He might have been in interrogation rooms before. He might know there are cameras there, and he might be played to the camera. So it didn't convince me that he was innocent, that would only happen if this were true, okay? Yeah, but again, I don't need proof or evidence for H naught. I need evidence for HA, all right? So later, towards the end of the trial, very end, they show us a video of the defendant buying zip ties and duct tape at 2 in the morning, 2 hours before the kidnapping. So, assuming that he was innocent, what is it? Well, and also from you guys, this is post-COVID. People are like, Walmart's open at 2 in the morning? Yes, pre-COVID, Walmart and H-E-B used to be open 24 hours a day. Yes, it's a different world. Anyways, so assuming that he was innocent, what is the probability he just happens to be buying zip ties and duct tape 2 hours before a kidnapping that he's accused of? It's super low, all right? So we basically, let me put that back. The probability here, getting this evidence, if H naught is true, is super low, 0.0001. All right, so that's actually the answer. That is what a p-value is. Okay, now you can write it other ways, but that's basically what it is. All right, so the probability of our guy, our defendant, of getting zip ties and duct tape 2 hours before the kidnapping he's accused of, if he's really innocent, is super low. You must think this is like the most unlucky guy in the world. So we did convict him. We're like, oh, it's highly unlikely that H naught is true. We changed our mind and we went to guilty. Well, he did confess, if that makes you feel better. And so and by the way, yeah, he did confess and we found him guilty because we had enough evidence. All right. So in this case, if you have super low probability, what you're going to say is, because the p-value is low, so low, we reject H naught, comma, that p equals 0.50. We're like, we don't believe it anymore. We have convincing evidence that HA is true. which is basically that p is greater than 0.50. So that's what our evidence is for. So that's a very simple structure. You don't know how to calculate these p-values yet. That's what we'll be doing the next 2 lessons. But the whole idea is we're teaching you to set up your initial hypothesis, your alternate. Again, it's easier to do the alternate first. Take a look at your sample. And in the next 2 lessons, we're going to show you how to calculate these p-values based on your sample. And then if the p-value is low, you change your mind, you reject H0, and you go with the alternate. If the p-value is not super low, all right, oops, let me put that back. If the p-value is not super low, right, then we fail to reject, all right. We always compare p-value to alpha, all right. So, and if it's below alpha, it's low. Change our mind. If it's above alpha, we don't change our mind because the evidence is not convincing. All right, so that's basically how we do that. If we don't change our mind, we fail to reject H0. There you go. And I hope that made that part pretty straightforward for you.